Today's story was written by Reddit user Kalens Mamertos. The priest was finishing officiating the Mass when the explosion was heard. Some believed that it had been inside the church, others that it had been in a nearby building, but what they unanimously agreed on was screaming at the top of their lungs and running desperately outside. Those closest to the exits were the lucky ones to escape the overwhelming force of the mob. Watching people step on those who had the misfortune to fall was demoralizing. It was like in this almost 10 blocks around the explosion, people rushed into the street to flee from the buildings for fear of their collapse. The belief that everyone has that in a situation like this, they would help others, leaving aside their own well-being, was completely dismissed at the sight of those events. The crying of the little ones calling their missing parents was a heartbreaking chorus, although it was more than well adjusted to the dynamic and horrifying scene that was being observed. All this happened while a cloud the colour of tea with milk, as I heard a child say, began to gain height, obscuring everything, as if it were a beast ready to devour whatever got in the way. When people saw this, they tried to cover their nose and mouth with some garment, but it was of little help. In the 45 minutes following the explosion, no one knew what had really happened. Only conjectures were heard, quasi-rumours that were delivered by pedestrians who had heard from a supposed bystander of the event. The newscast began to speculate, including some unbelievable theory in their report. Everything was chaos. Some still carry the scars from that day, in which many said they thought they were running, but in reality, they could not move from the place to which they were anchored, due to that inexplicable fear of not knowing. The shops lowered their heavy metal shutters, anticipating possible acts of vandalism. Entire sections of the city gave the impression of being ghost towns. All non-humans were placed on curfew, and those with criminal records were detained for questioning. Many of those were never heard from again. Only a handful of ownerless dogs were the masters of the streets, avenues, alleys, while fear became a silent jailer. The memory of that Sunday in March would remain engraved in everyone's genetic memory. It was carved by tears and dust in our blood. The Universal Congress made a statement in solidarity with humanity, but condemning the actions of the government towards the aliens that inhabited the Earth and its colonies. They later condemned having thrown every Xeno out of human territory. They demanded answers. But they are bureaucrats, and bureaucrats have no power. They are just puppets. From that moment, we became xenophobic, and we have not gone back on that terrible policy. Fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, all the dead of that day meant something to someone, or to many. Mankind gazed expectantly for a couple of hours, or days, but that was all. When the cleanup and funerals were over, it was time for something else, and so it is kept deep in the memory to never be remembered on purpose, but by chance. The tributes that are being made every year are smaller and smaller. At the beginning, all the people participated in them. Now many pass by without even looking. The newscasts no longer cover them like the first. There is no longer a minute of silence. Too many years have passed. The youngest know the figures and dates, but for them it is ancient history. They don't feel anything, they don't care. But there are still a few that remember. I remember. I remember all the details, and all the orders, and all the faces, and all the names. There are many stories about what happened that day, most of them born from idle minds, others created with the sole purpose of preventing people from asking questions that might result in uncomfortable answers. Deceit and secrets weigh too much, they say. I think what weighs the most on me is the gaze of the dead. My cross weighs the same as those 287 people. It weighs the same as the tears of their families. It weighs the same as those tons of cement that hid the truth. At the beginning, I agreed with what happened and what we did. It was for the greater good, I told myself. But time is a bad companion for those who have not succeeded in murdering their conscience. The eyes of each victim look at me at night. They don't speak, but I know what they think of me. There are whole days in which I go without seeing them, but when night comes, they are there. I can't go on like this anymore. I feel so ashamed. That's why I'm recording this. I'm too tired. I haven't been able to sleep for so long, more or less since that time. I heard that there are those who are looking for me, and I know why. They are afraid that I open my mouth. Many careers would be lost if I did. Many people would end up buried in places that no one would ever find, or even worse. The control they exercise over us is indescribable. They decide what is needed and generate a plan to carry it out. Then we sheep react as expected. This is how we declared war on the Boulder. The attack in the Novo Brazil colony was a false flag operation. The request for help from the Travell miners was created in the Central Intelligence Offices, and with that excuse we took control of the Duridium mines, which helped us promote the creation of the 12th Fleet. But the human race was led to believe that it was a humanitarian issue. The Confederation's prime ministerial elections are manipulated each time through the ballot box, but above all, the media. Sotomayor didn't hate the Elvidar, and those secretly recorded talks were fake. I know because I created them, as well as I create many other things that are still believed. But I've noticed that people want to believe them because they don't know any better, or because they don't want to know. They prefer the shiny thing. Someone once said a lie repeated 1,000 times becomes a truth, and humanity has lived in a lie for so long that we made it our reality. We are the toughest soldiers in the galaxy. One tiny woman can kill 7 highly trained and armed Sclabate. There is nothing more deadly than an angry human. A human can survive everything after all. We are Death Welders. That our army is powerful. Yes, it is. But there are others who, if they join together, could destroy us. That is why our agents are infiltrated in so many places in the galaxy. That is why, even though we close ourselves off from the universe, we continue to control it from the shadows. And the worst is that they have made us look at the stars and see a black forest. I don't think I have much time. My fate has already been decided. At any moment, someone is going to enter my room, stealthily. I'm not going to hear anything, not their footsteps, not their breathing. They will get behind me. I'll never see the flash of